Welcome back to CrossTalk, the pod where we tackle crucial and sometimes controversial topics young adults are asking about. Here we also try to bridge the generational gap by bringing in people of all ages and stages to share their wisdom. We have officially made it to season 3, and it's so nice to finally meet all of you since we've managed to crack the code in visuals and are coming to you live from the CrossTalk studios.
Woohoo!
Okay. Season 3 brings a whole new topic of conversation to the pod, as well as some new and some familiar faces. This season will be all about the things joyful and merry and the not so joyful and merry as we enter the holiday season. This season we've been rejoined by Karen Maree, our very own Brene Brown and Feelings Extraordinaire. She's also our favorite Canadian accent, which also spices up, brings some spice. And you should recognize from last season if you listened to it. And then new to the panel, we have Nkumbesi, a self-proclaimed powerful man of God,
Yes.
web developer and designer, a man in touch with his creative side, as he says. And of course, there's me. My name is Sim, and I have the privilege of hosting the pod. We'll be diving right in today and talking all about the ugly truth behind this season. But I'll start with a light question. Just ease us into it. Who here would say they enjoy the holiday season?
Oof, that's a loaded question.
I thought it was.
No, I enjoy it.
Enjoy it.
I enjoy it from the moment the Christmas movies start coming out. So I'm already in there deep, and we're trying to decide when can we actually get away with putting up the tree without it being inappropriately early?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm up on the other side. I'm like a Kendrick Lamar level hater. So I put up with Christmas. And then also, thanks to where I happen to stay, everyone just surrounds where I am. So I get overwhelmed a lot during this time of year. Unless somebody lets me house it, which is the best part.
Speaking of overwhelmed, okay. Can you share a time when you felt overwhelmed by the expectations of the holiday season? What emotions does it bring up for you? What does overwhelm bring up for you? You mentioned it, so you can go.
The feelings, well, scared, anxious, worried about if whatever I get is going to be good enough, or, and then also like my nephew, one of my closest nephews, happens to have a birthday the day after Christmas. So it's just like, it's a stressful period for me. And I was just like, I need to find a present for him. And this year already looks scary because it's the combination of him going to the mountains and all that as well. So it's like 3 things in one.
The busyness.
Yes, I don't know. There's way too much happening.
I think for me, it's a bit of a roller coaster of emotions and busyness. So I am a recovering perfectionist. So things like, I want the meal to be amazing, and I kind of pride myself on the fact I cook an amazing turkey. But Christmas wouldn't be. Sorry,
we don't have turkeys so much.
Well, I have to go on a hunt to find them for sure. That's part of the season, But there's always that panic of, is it going to be right? Is it going to be okay? The people-pleasing side, maybe. But I think it can also be a very lonely time for me, with most of, all my family of origin being in another country. So there's the loneliness as well as the pressure to kind of have to perform. I'm not so much into the whole stuff thing. So Christmas for me is not about the gifts. It's actually about the connection and the time together and what have you. And so I find the shopping overwhelming, sensory overload, stressful, and I don't know how to put a stuff value on how I feel about people. So I feel like I fail dismally. Some people are gifted. It's their love language. They come up with the most thoughtful, extraordinary gifts. I'm not that person.
What would you say is your love language?
Me. Quality time, and probably acts of service.
Okay. Okay.
Quality time and words of affirmation.
So for you guys, Christmas is definitely, I'm a gifts person. So I thrive in Christmas, being able to actually have a reason to give people stuff and not just randomly throw out stuff. But for people like you, where it's not necessarily receiving a gift, like a physical gift, how do you juggle the like expectation of like, and your own like feelings, like, oh, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when I get a bad gift, I'm like, oh, because I feel like then they don't know me. But I don't know how it feels like for people who have a different like love language.
Well, for me, the first thing I look for is the note. So at least that's the part that matters. I don't really... The gift could be terrible, but as the notes, it's got a cute note on it, I love it. And I have my little note box. But I also have great professional poster face. So if someone like gives me a bad thing, I can give them the, hey, thank you so much. This is so great. And then, you know, and then move away and just afterwards be like, and then I'll have enough strength to do whatever or use it in front of them in the future, just once to knock it off and then be done with it.
I always think it's interesting to kind of see how people see you by what they get for you. So sometimes I'm surprised at how well someone knows me, but equally as surprised by, really? After all this time you don't know me?
Still the soap.
Yeah. But like I think for me, it's quite a culture shift having, or just a shift with Christmas being in summertime, and that's generally a time when everybody's scattering. Whereas my frame of reference is winter. It's cold. Everyone's coming inside, and we're coming together.
Yeah.
So I have to battle less about disappointment with gifts, but more with I'd really hoped my expectation for connection.
Yeah, I really hope we'd be able to spend this time together, that type of thing.
Yeah. Like, oh, what do you mean? You want to go be with your friends? Like,
what am I?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had a question that was going to tie onto this so well, but I forgot. Oh, yes, okay. Do you guys have a gift drawer where you just put the gifts you don't want in and re-gift? Like, are you re-gifters?
No, not at all.
No?
Would never do that. That would be a terrible thing to do, Simone. Possibly. To all my friends, I never do that. Maybe. Yes. I'm not going to comment on that. Just going to...
Leave it at that.
Yes, leave it at that. I think yes. But you get what he is.
Yeah. No, not really. I'm sure I have regifted in the past, at least once or twice, but it's not a habit that I have. So
Okay.
I think also because I'm not huge on gifts, I don't have expectations for people to get gifts. So the people that we do are, getting gifts for.
Yeah.
It's getting smaller and smaller as we're getting older. So there isn't a lot of access to gifts. Yeah.
That's true, yeah. So then you've mentioned, it being very different, like your frame of reference from usually coming together to scattering. Now, how did you, find that, like, your first experience of that? Like, how did you work through it to get to where you are now, where it's like, it's not okay, but I can kind of deal with it?
I think I had to work with my expectations, and I had to process my loneliness. I could be around a lot of people. We're busy, and so you're doing a lot of things. You're going from this event or this function to that function, and I'm surrounded by people, but I'm desperately lonely. So, and I think, it's interesting just living in another country away from my family when my husband's family is here, that it's never a question of where are you spending Christmas or who are you spending Christmas with.
There's never the in-law debate.
Never, ever. So it's always, we're always with family, but it is sad because it's not the same. They're your family, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then speaking about loneliness, how do you think, or why do you think it is that loneliness manifests the most during this time of year? Would you say that's statistically correct?
I think so. Probably nostalgia has a lot to play with it.
Yeah.
you know, that you think back to like the memories and so much of how Christmas is even marketed is around families coming together. And how many Christmas movies, I mean, Hallmark has made a killing on,
Yeah.
you know, the small town
town
Christmas vibe with everyone coming together and sharing their time and their hearts with each other. So, you know, there's so much focus on family and gathering that if you don't have a great family background or you don't have family nearby and everyone's talking about, oh, is your family coming for Christmas, what have you, there's so much talk about it, it can make you feel very alone if you're not if you don't have that strong base.
Yeah. And how would you say we support people, or we can support people who are, you know, feeling this loneliness but not outwardly expressing it? Like, how can you show up without like crossing a line, you know, the like unspoken thing in the room?
I don't think it has to be unspoken. I think there's such freedom and like empathy comes into the room when someone says, hey, this must be a hard season for you. You know, I can imagine you must get homesick. There's permission. There's permission for the feelings that you're trying to push down and put the happy face on. So I think one of the ways of supporting and showing up is demonstrating that empathy. Like, I recognize and I understand that this might be hard for you. And I think holding space, going, you know what, if you need to just like, you know, be quiet or withdraw or just have, you know, if someone's sitting in a corner in the middle of a function, just sit next to them, you know, be present and aware that not everyone in the room is bubbling with excitement and joy.
Yeah.
So no, for me, it's like an annual thing because I'll never go home during Christmas time. So, but what has happened over the last 4 to 5 years, I get invited to a different family each year for Christmas. And I just become like the unknown son. So I found that really helpful, dealing with the whole emotions and feeling of like obviously intense loneliness. And I didn't have a flatmate for like a couple of years. So that was even really, really like magnify the day. But then also once in a while, I will take our youth and young adults who are not with their families, and then I'll have a Christmas thing, which we did about 2 years ago. So it's, I think, finding those practical ways of actually building a family, because we always talk about church as a family, but then when it's time to apply, we sometimes miss this obvious way of doing it. So that's made me feel very loved and take, like, even when people go on hikes around this time, they'll head me in, and it really feels incredible being part of a family.
I think it's a great opportunity to an excuse to start building that.
Yeah.
That's something that my family modeled to me growing up, is they would always have those that didn't have family come and join us. And it's one of the traditions that I've started on Christmas Eve. That's my day for build a family. So each year, it's not always the same people every year, but who isn't going to be with theirs on Christmas Eve?
Absolutely.
And then we'll do non-Christmas food.
Yes.
And just be together. And yeah, it really is important to notice and include.
And so since I know both of you personally, introvert, extrovert, correct? How would you say your personalities, like that, the introvertedness and the extrovertedness, either helps you or does not help you in this season? Like, how do you, you know, like you need alone time to recharge, whereas you need chaos and people. How have you found balancing that with the seasonal dynamics?
I find it tougher because you actually don't get people, because half your friends are out of town and then the other half are just doing family stuff. Literally, I think from once work shuts down from about the 15th to 20th, your friends just aren't available doing stuff. So you just have no one to really interact with. You can call your family on the phone and stuff, but it doesn't feel the same. And basically, I then only look forward to like the days where I'm going to be at church or doing something. Other than that, it just really becomes a difficult period until like New Year's, essentially.
So for you, it's like forced introvertedness.
Yeah, which is a pain. I hear thoughts I should not hear, so I prefer not.
For me, I have to be very intentional about building quiet time into the days, into the weeks. So, for example, on Christmas Day, I wash the dishes. And that is, people can offer to help. It's quite all right. I'm as happy as a pig in mud washing the dishes because probably the only time of the year that I'm happy washing.
I was going to say,
dishes.
there's normally there's a rotation normally.
Because it's quiet. It's my time to just unplug and from the people and recharge a little bit. I'll be mindful of not overscheduling. So if we do 2-3 things in a row, that I make sure I have a day or two to recover. Otherwise, it's my family that pays a price. In that either I'm grumpy or I'm just so tired that when they want to do stuff, then I'm not keen. So I've got to monitor my energy levels. It's no one else's job but mine.
Yeah. And I think now that we're still talking about like, balancing our own and, like thoughts and voices and stuff. What are some common sources of anxiety during the season? Like what are some things that bring people more anxiety in the season compared to like May or June?
I think finances is a big one.
Yeah.
Because less people are getting bonuses and
I don't know what a bonus is.
yeah. And so, life is hard and you have unexpected things and now you're expected to buy all these presents and everything is come to this event. Oh, and bring a little gift to share or bring, the food is extra and feeling financially secure in this season, I think is a huge source of stress. Because either you have to be comfortable saying no, or you're faking it but paying for it later.
Yeah.
And starting your year off on the back foot, which is another layer of stress altogether. I think family, as much as we love them, are also a massive source of stress because it would be nice if we were all like each other. But
on the
that's
same
also
page.
Some of the problem is we're too like each other. So you've got the same triggers. So, yeah.
No, I mean, you covered most of the important ground there. I'm trying to think what else. Money's basically the same. The only thing I can think of is really stressful. And then, ironically, even being an extrovert, it's people. There's just way too many people. Maybe it's because we're a beach city, but it feels like anywhere you go, there's just people. You want to just like, oh, let me go treat myself to a little meal. There's huge amounts of people in the same restaurant, and it's just gets really overwhelming over some time.
And being a pastor, it's, hey, Kayana, you.
Yes, and like you're trying to have a coffee, and someone's like, hey, Pastor K, like, again. So it's like, and then you can't just drop them and walk away. You have to still stop, listen, do go whatever's going on. So it is people are ironically a stress. But not the people at my church. So,
yeah. Do you want to add?
I was just going to say, just while you were talking now, I was just thinking it's also the time when a lot of us are taking leave. Yeah. But then if you're filling it with people or things that can be overwhelming and enjoyable on one hand, but a different kind of drain on the other hand, you can end your leave feeling as tired as when you started. You just spent it differently. So, I think that can be an anxiety thing too.
Yeah. I've actually never thought I've felt it. I've just never thought about it. But talking about the financial thing, how do you think we can go from, how do you think we can shift the perspective from being materialistic to, a more meaningful way of celebrating the holidays? Like you've mentioned connections and stuff, but how do we, become intentional about that? How do we proactively shift the mindset?
I think communication. Something that I've been trying to do in our family for a while, like an extended family, is, we all have limits in what we can spend. Yeah. So how can we be creative and not be causing stress to each other? So do we need to do gifts? If so, then why don't we put a limit on it, or draw names? Or some years we've done, everyone had to buy something to the value of, say, 50 Rand, and then you do that parcel game.
Yeah.
And because it's not about the thing, it's about being, if the value is connection, then it shouldn't be about the thing.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be a source of stress that could break connection. Even doing a homemade year, like, if everyone has their creativity and their gifts that come out in different ways, baking or crocheting or
I wonder what yours is.
I wonder what mine is. Whatever
Everyone
it
knows
is,
what
like,
you're getting from Karen.
Mine is eating, so that's
is yours eating? Like,
yes,
sharing the
sure.
gifts, hey?
Yeah,
Sharing
eating everyone's
the
good
gifts.
cooking and baking. So someone's got to do the hard work.
But I think if we can talk
So
about
receiving someone's baking and
Yes.
yeah, you'll
cooking.
do that.
I do bake. Why are you laughing? I do bake once in a while when I feel like it. Like lockdown, especially.
Banana bread.
Yes, many times.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not. I got caught off by the banana bread.
Hey, it was the best thing that happened at that time.
Yeah. So if we're, ironically, so my family has been the family that's like, we'll do gifts for everyone every year, because my grannies, bless their heart, do shopping in like June, and they get stuff for everyone in like June, throughout the year. And so my mom and I like, this year we're going to be on our game. So we went and bought everyone presents. And then they're like, hey, let's do Secret Santa. I was like, no. The one year we are like ready, So do you guys have any like, traditions that you guys do? Because like ours would be giving out everyone gifts, and now it's just been broken by Secret Santa. But like, has there ever been like a tradition that you guys have created that's like lasted, or like you did it once and you're like, oh no, we can't do this no more?
I think we did Christmas clothes. You just bought new stuff and it was like Christmas themed and tried to all match together. Didn't last long because you just saw the photos and was like, nope, we're not doing this again. So
Green and red.
Yeah, green is not my color, so it didn't quite work out. But I think we haven't really done any other traditions besides that. Yeah.
In our family, we do, in our immediate families, we would open presents with the kids on Christmas Eve, and it would just be us. So we could actually enjoy watching the boys' reactions, and they could see ours. So our gifts to each other we would do on Christmas Eve, and then when the rest of the family got together, then we would open those presents all together. But I didn't want to miss out on just being able to be present to them.
Yeah.
And then before we opened the presents, more so when they were small, into maybe the end of primary school, I would read the Christmas story to them. So actually we had a children's book on the nativity story, and we would read that first and just sort of do that whole reminder of this is actually what Christmas is about. And to try and just sort of get our hearts centered on not just the stuff, but on Jesus. I think those are probably the main ones that have stuck around. And then, you try different things like gingerbread houses.
That does sound epic, though.
I mean, they were phenomenal. I had a double story, stained glass windows. I mean, I went all out, perfectionist. Hello. But then there's a reason why you don't do gingerbread houses in South Africa in summer, because it melted. And then the ants came, and just the devastation. That's the end of the gingerbread houses. But we did try that for a few years.
Wow, so you didn't just give up after the first time?
No, I mean, they got better and better till I went big, and then the weather,
And then
humidity, and
Like, how big are we talking?
I'll show you pictures later.
Okay. Do you have one?
What?
Tradition.
A tradition? It's more recently for myself. It's my own tradition. I buy my own gifts. Like I use it as an excuse, as if I don't do it throughout the whole year. But more so recently, I have adopted the habit of looking for gifts because like my love language is gifts, giving gifts. So I've intentionally looked for gifts that speak to me, There's like a holy moment.
It's like the Green Goblin speaking to you.
Yeah, the Grinch.
Yeah. The Grinch is better, I hear.
Yeah. And Christmas sweaters. I rewarded myself with, I've always wanted like an ugly Christmas sweater. And last year I rewarded myself with a Christmas sweater, which is even better because I really love the Grinch. But yeah, I think for me, a tradition I have is the 26th I do nothing. Like I always house sit over the holiday season. And so the 26th they're like phoning, are you coming? No. No. I'm sleeping my life away on the 26th. Because yeah, like people are draining the expectations, having to juggle like as a someone who likes to receive gifts, having to open the gift and it's like soap, or I don't want to out my family for gifts they've given, so we'll stop there. But like having to like, or if I get a really good gift, like having to control my face and my excitement. I think it's very difficult. Like I'm like a weird like internal processor, but externally it's like straight. And I think some people get like befuzzled by it. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I don't know what other people's expectations, I think, is like my biggest battle, Yeah. But like talking about like, so like that's my battle. Like what role does community, we've spoken about community a lot, and we speak about community a lot in this podcast in general because, we were all called for community. We were made for community. But yeah, what role would you say community helps in what plays in helping those, who are struggling? I just had a moment. Those who are struggling during the holidays, like what are some of the positive impacts that a community can have? I know we've mentioned a few, but if you can think of any others.
Off the top of my head, I think it's just having people to talk to, having people just to like process what's going on. So one of the other main reasons why we don't do Christmas together is after my mom passed away about 8 years ago, none of us ever come back together because it was her thing. So it's just a nice time to like process that with and be in a different family type of situation. That's the best part of it for me. Just being able to have people that you can talk and go deep with. As opposed to just like having these shallow Merry Christmas, you go to church and you like afterwards you get in the car and go home and it's you and the wall and you and whatever is on TV that day.
Yeah, I think community can be amazing when there's intentionality. So kind of repeating what we said earlier, but like looking for the lonely person, looking, to invite someone over that you might not have. And it's not just about Christmas Day, but the fact that for a lot of us, we are on leave. So there's more spaces built into your life that you could be connecting other than with your own little circle, your holy huddle. Even just opportunities for generosity, hearing, because there are stresses like financial pressures and things like that. Not everyone is going to be having these amazing, huge meals.
Yeah.
But maybe there's a way that you can be a blessing to someone in giving what you've got, be it resources or food or anything. I think being intentional in not just looking in your own little bubble, but how could I be the hands and feet and heart of Jesus to someone that's maybe not in my direct circle, but is still part of our church family.
Yeah. Something I've always wanted to do, and I saw it last year, was the giving tree. I don't know. I think it was probably a lot more popular on your side of the world than here because after I saw it last year, I looked for it and I couldn't find it. But like being able to give someone exactly what they need, if you're in the capacity to do that. I think I would even do it if I was not in the capacity to do it, just because, you know, I think it's so fulfilling being able to, like you said, I forgot what you said, but, you know, to be light to others, you know, to be hands and feet, to go out of your way to make someone else's day or season a little bit better. And you spoke about, like, you know, finding the lonely person or finding the people that are struggling. How do you make it less awkward? So I'm an awkward person.
Really?
Yeah. Don't come for me. So like, how would you, you know, first of all, identify, you know, who's lonely? Some people have really great poker faces and stuff. And then how would you like approach the thing of like, hey, like, and for extroverts it's easy, but like us, I mean, some introverts do it well too. But there are those of us who are Enneagram 6s, as Karen likes, you know. No, I don't think so.
I think it could be, I mean, find out what's already happening and see where you can join in. Ooh. So, for example, there's going to be a group looking to go caroling at the old age home. That was something that was part of our sort of church routine every year, is the youth would go caroling at the old age homes. I loved it. It was so much fun because you got to engage with people that you might not otherwise engage with. You got to see the joy. Like you learn to value how much presence matters to people when you see it reflected, you know, when you put yourself in the places where you can see this really means something, that we would take the time to go and just sing and then eat cookies and drink hot chocolate, you know, keeping your ears open. So, you know, if a communion on Sunday, be intentional about going and spending it with someone that you don't know, but still within the familiarity of your church space, and bring a friend with you so that you're going to the new person and it's not as threatening, because every introvert needs their extrovert buddy that can help pave the way. What community outreach things are there? Like just keeping your eyes and ears open and then actually following through on it.
So an accountability partner would also probably be good for an introvert.
Yeah.
You wanted to go do that, you should.
If you hear people saying, oh, what are your Christmas plans? No, I'm going to be on my own. Well, there you go. There's an invite. It doesn't have to be Christmas Day. It could be the 17th of December. Hey, let's have a games night.
Yeah.
You know, and invite someone.
Yeah. So then still talking about community and about intentionality and stuff, how can we create spaces where it's okay to talk about the struggles of, you know, the holiday? For those of us at Fountain, Hannah McLean, she kind of, you know, just touched on that this is a season that we're entering where it is obviously very different from very many people. Each person experiences it really differently. But how do we create the space where it's okay to talk about the struggles? Like, it's okay for us to say, hey, listen, I'm actually feeling this. Can you help me?
I think you just have to establish like honesty amongst friends and people. Because I think Christmas is unwittingly a very positive season. Everybody wants to be happy, smiley, wearing their, you know, Christmas gear and stuff. But I think there needs to be a space of like honesty. I mean, again, like most of us are struggling, whether it's mental, financial, spiritual, something in this season, and just being able to be like, and take the step and be like, you know what, I'm going to open up and be like, hey, this is a really struggling season for me. I feel lonely. I feel like there's nothing for me to do. I don't feel my worth really in this season, and make that space happen. I mean, it's very easy for me to do that as extrovert. I always create that, but like, I think being intentional about doing that and being honest in those situations Because I think you can get lost in the group chats, sending jokes and memes, and actually forget about, how's everyone actually doing.
Mm-hmm. Something that my parents' church did, which I thought was really interesting and thoughtful, is they had a special service or a special time of gathering for people where this is hard. So maybe it would be the first Christmas after the loss of a loved one, or maybe the 10th Christmas after the loss of a loved one. But it's a point where, it can be really painful. Actually creating space for grief, creating space for lament in God's presence. I just thought that was it was a very beautiful but also very hopeful space, because you were allowed to take the happy face off and to just sort of be and bring your full self and bring your full heart before the Lord in community. To go, I'm not alone in this, because sometimes you can feel like you're all alone. So even just amongst your group of friends, if you know where each other is at, finding ways to kind of acknowledge it and invite, like, how could we help you in, you mentioned losing your mom, and she was the one who kind of held the season together. What would holding space look like for you to be able to, like, kind of just, rather than soldier on through, but to sort of tap into, be it the grief, but also the joy of the memories, like to have that space and freedom? What could that look like for you?
Well, hopefully be just finding a place where I can just speak about it without bumming out everyone, but also just like maybe try again, my family, to do one bigger Christmas again and see what that actually feels like, and if we can actually get through it together. So maybe next year.
Risking.
Yeah, and just seeing what happens.
Being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scary now I'm thinking about it, but
You have a whole year to prepare.
Lots of emotions already.
Okay. And then final question for this session. What small things throughout the years have you found helps you find joy during the tough seasons? Like, what are some small things you've found?
Building puzzles.
Should have known.
So lame. But because there's stillness, and then there's time to sit and reflect and think about the year and have someone come alongside and build with you. You don't even have to talk, but you're just in each other's presence. And I enjoy that. And even things like putting on the music and kind of being intentional in how can we, I'm going to say the word again, how can we be present to each other? How do we show up in these spaces for each other? And it doesn't have to be big. We, on our Christmas tree, string popcorn. And so we'll put on a movie, and one of my kids and I will sit down and we'll string popcorn. And we don't have to be saying anything, but we're together. Yeah. And it's really like, I savor that. Like, it's really special. It's not the big stuff.
Yeah.
It's not the big stuff. It's the being grateful for in those moments and recognizing those moments and just sort of like savoring them.
Yeah. Well, two things. One is 4 names, 2 different people, Mariah Carey and Michael Bublé. So they just make the season happen for me. Once I hear his voice in shops, I just feel better. And then number 2, mince pies, the greatest invention of Christmas, the only thing worth Christmas time. And then it's always, people. But I think, those are my 2 biggest things, like the music and the mince pies. Because there's nothing else about this season that really like redeems in that regard.
2 very different answers, but 2 very different people. So we just want to thank you for joining us on this episode. And we look forward to the rest of the season and seeing where it goes. But for now, this has been CrossTalk. Bye.